Hello everyone and welcome back, and today we have another movie review. So I recently saw Brightburn, and with all the hype surrounding this movie, how does it hold up? And is it any good? Well, given how I got a comment that this is the best movie of the year, and I've heard many other people talk about how incredible this movie is, what do I think? Well, the short answer is no. This movie does not really live up to the hype. Now, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't classify this as a bad movie by any means, however, I would classify it in the same vein as Endgame, a massive disappointment. However, don't take this the wrong way, this movie is nowhere near the degree of disappointing as Endgame was. If I had to pick between this movie or Endgame, I'll take Brightburn any day. And it's sad because this movie really does have a really good concept, and I would love to see this concept much more often. The idea of a more evil side of superheroes, horror movies based around superheroes. I love that idea, and I'm a huge horror fanatic. I grew up off of horror movies. I grew up off of horror video games like Silent Hill, Clock Tower, and Resident Evil. I love horror. I live and breathe horror, and naturally the idea of superhero horror movies sounds brilliant. And there are lots of superheroes that you can make an amazing horror movie out of, such as Ghost Rider. I would love to see a Ghost Rider horror movie. But that's besides the point. How does this one hold up where we get a evil Superman? And I'll talk about some of the good stuff before I get to the negatives, because there is some good stuff in this movie that I do enjoy. For one, the gore effects are incredible. The gore that we see in this movie is really damn good. The way that certain violence happens and certain death scenes play out is just really cringe-inducing in a good way. It's like it makes you feel very squeamish. There's one scene that I'm sure you've all seen in the trailers where a girl pulls a shard of glass out of her eye, and it's just really brutal and cringy to watch. I won't lie, I did turn my head at that. And there's another scene where a guy's jaw gets broken, and it looks so disgusting and brutal. And I do love the gore effects. And I do also like the relationship between the mother and father. It's pretty good, and it does feel like a genuine mother and father. It doesn't feel like just two actors pretending to be a couple. I did like that. The acting is also pretty good, with the exception of a certain somebody that we'll get to in a minute. But for the most part, the acting was pretty damn good. The directing was also pretty good, not much complaints though. I wish there could have been a little bit more done with the directing, but for what it is, it's perfectly fine. Let's see, what else in this movie did I enjoy? I mean, we already got the concept out of the way. I do like the concept, but outside of that, there's not really much else I could think of that this movie does that I really enjoyed. I mean, the death scenes were fine, however, there's not really enough death scenes, and in fact, only 2 death scenes happen on screen. One of them happens so fast that you don't even know what even happened. So, with that out of the way, let's just get to the negatives. Unfortunately, there's much more. And the main one for me is the main character, Brandon. We don't get anything from this character. Not only is the character very boring, but we get very little development or motivation for him. We don't really get why he becomes evil. There's not really anything given there. And I don't understand why. Like, this is a movie that really needed to be a slow barn horror movie. The pacing for this movie, it's way too fast. Everything just happens so quickly, and you don't really get a chance to understand why the main character, the main villain, is the way that he is. We get barely anything. I mean, the most that happens is the ship tells him to take the world, and he decides that's exactly what I'm going to do because I'm special. That's really it. We don't really get any clear motivation for why he's doing what he's doing, and since we don't get any development, or we didn't see how he was before the ship told him to take the world, you're just thinking in your head, well, what the fuck is his motivation? Everything feels so random. Is it the girl he falls in love with? Is it the desire to be special? Is it the ship telling him to take the world? We don't get anything. I mean, I'm not asking for a lot, but a few minute scene of us getting to see what Brandon was like would have been nice. I mean, there's a couple of scenes in the beginning, but we don't really get a whole lot of it. You get maybe 2 to 3 minutes at best of seeing what Brandon is like with his family, but they're way too short. Everything just goes by so quickly. And the closest that we do get to a motivation is a lesson in the class that vaguely alludes to this idea that the main character is some kind of like extraterrestrial wasp and he's gonna take over Earth or something. But even then, this is only like mere speculation and foreshadowing, based on a scene in a classroom that is not really all that long, and is really more so done to kind of show how intelligent the main character is, because again, he's Superman, so he has the ability of super knowledge and all that stupid shit. So it's really disappointing that we don't get any motivation or any development for this character, and it sucks because oftentimes you will find with horror movies that they can really hinge on their main antagonists, but this one gives us nothing. For example, one of my all-time favorite horror movie characters is John Kramer, aka Jigsaw. And what I like about him is he's not just some generic crazy guy or a mindless killer. He is a person, and an incredibly flawed person. We see his past and what led him to become the Jigsaw killer. And I love that. I love that we get this development and this time that we get to spend with Jigsaw to find out what makes him tick, his motivation, his philosophy, what triggered him to even become Jigsaw in the first place. And it's what makes me root for John Kramer and why I love him so much, because he's a very well developed character. He's more than just some crazy killer. But this movie doesn't give us anything. He's just an emotionless sociopath, but we don't get any explanation as to why he's a sociopath. Was it the ship? Was he born that way? Was it him getting bullied? I mean, we get a couple of scenes of a single kid making fun of him, but that's it. The movie gives us nothing to work with. And it's so damn frustrating. And the pacing doesn't help at all either. And another problem with this movie is, as a horror movie, it does nothing. This is not a very good horror movie, because the attempt at scares are laughably pathetic. The only attempt at scares we get is some stupid bullshit of, now you see me, now you don't. Like, have you ever seen the movie The Strangers? That pile of shit, that's what it's like. We get these scenes of, oh, well, the main character is there, now he's here. And then there's some other jump scares towards the end. That's it. There's not really much of an attempt at horror here. We even get the obligatory nightmare sequence and the oh so cliche mirror scene. We get that bullshit scare, which makes this movie just feel so much more cliche. Like, okay, you have this brilliant concept, but it's approached with the same level of writing as any other generic slasher. And this main character has no real personality. I mean, think about all the really great horror villains. Freddy Krueger, Chucky, Jigsaw. They all have personality and charisma. They feel so unique, and whenever they're on screen, they steal the show. They are very entertaining antagonists. But when you have an antagonist that's just so boring and so devoid of personality, it's like, well, who the hell cares? I mean, he might as well be swapped out with some generic Michael Myers types killer or something for all I care. I mean, I really don't care about the main villain. He's so boring. And if you're planning to make a sequel, or even, God forbid, a cinematic universe out of this, if this bland hunk of wood is our main antagonist, then I'm sorry, I'm going to take a hard pass. Because he's not all that entertaining. He's not even really all that scary. I mean, he's so random. I mean, sure, he makes an attempt to be a Michael Myers type character, I guess, but it doesn't work because, again, we don't get anything as to why he is the way that he is. Now, sure, sometimes the whole not knowing what the character was like can be scary if you have some mystique, but it doesn't work here. And I'm sorry, but I can't help but to feel that this concept is just completely wasted. Sure, you have an amazing concept. Now do something with it. Like, seriously, your concept doesn't mean jack shit if your execution means jack shit. The execution of this is just really not all that good. It's way too fast-paced, no development, no surprises, nothing. This movie plays out exactly how you expect it to. There's no surprises, there's nothing clever being done here. It's completely wasted. And I hear people praising this movie for being the worst superhero-based horror movie, but that's all it can lay claim to. It was the first, but it's certainly not the best because it doesn't utilize the concept to the best of its ability. We don't get anything clever. Nothing. We just get a kind of generic horror movie in the countryside with an evil Superman. But he's not a very charismatic evil Superman, so he's just kind of boring on screen. I mean, sure, the acting is fine with all the other actors. They have a lot of character, especially the mother. You really do feel for the mother, but at the same time, you can't say the same for the kid. Now, I understand, finding good child actors is not easy, but it's not impossible either. I'm sure they could have found some way to give this kid some charisma. It can be done. And the other thing that bugs me is just certain choices that the characters make. It's like, okay, the dad, for example, he decides to take the kid on a hunting trip to try to kill him because he finds out that he's evil and he killed his uncle. Okay, but here's my question. You know that growing up, nothing has ever hurt him. Nothing has ever cut him, given him a bruise, nothing. Nothing has ever been able to injure him. So you decide to try to shoot him. Why? Like, you know that the ship is the only thing that has ever cut him. Okay, so why not take a piece of the ship and make a bullet out of it? Why are you going to try to shoot him when you know nothing has ever injured him? And I can't help but to think, what the hell is this man thinking? Why would you try to shoot him? You know it's not going to do anything to him. I mean, seriously, we know that bullets don't work on him. And guess what? This guy does too. So it's not like, oh, we know bullets don't hurt him, but the main character doesn't, because the character within the context of the story knows damn well that nothing has ever injured him. So why would you think that shooting him would do anything to him? You have reason to believe that he caused a car accident. So, at the very least, you would assume that he can get hit by a car and nothing will happen to him. What makes you think a bullet from a little hunting rifle is going to do anything to him? It's just baffling to me. And the mother makes an attempt to kill her son, but does a really shitty job doing it because she just takes such a long time to try to kill her son, and it's just too late. I mean, granted, not every character is a dumbass, and the dumb character moments are thankfully few and far between in this movie, but when they did happen, I'm just thinking, why? Why are some of these characters making these choices? I just don't get it. I mean, that's about all I have left to talk about. The only other thing left I could think of to criticize is the soundtrack, which is just very boring. It sounds like somebody took the infamous Inception soundtrack and then was told, take this and make it into a horror soundtrack. That's it. There's not really anything here soundtrack-wise that I could see thinking, oh, that's very good. I mean, the recent Chucky theme is pretty damn good. It's very creepy. It has a unique feel to it. I could watch the Chucky movie and think, that song I can associate with the Child's Play franchise. You don't get that here. There's no real iconic music or anything. So, with that being said, my final rating for this movie is going to be a 6 out of 10. Now, sure, I'm probably going to get attacked by the people who think this is a good movie, but I'm sorry. I know it's a great concept. I really do get it. But the execution here just doesn't do anything. A wise man once said, ideas are worth nothing, execution is everything, and this wasn't executed well. I'm sorry. It's so wasted in its potential. And I'm really sad because I did want this movie to be good. I didn't want this movie to fail, but it's disappointing. I mean, I didn't go into this movie thinking, oh, I want this movie to suck. I really did want it to be good, and there were some good parts, but as a horror movie, it's not very scary. The only thing that kind of made me wince was some of the gore, but that's hardly anything. I mean, it's more of a natural response than anything else. So, that's my review of Brightburn. What did you think of the movie? Did you like it? Do you think it's the best movie of the year? Or did you think that it was a massive disappointment? Let me know, and I'll see you guys around next time.